Hi everyone, welcome to Bible Bites. This week I want to think a bit about the idea of mysticism. Now, that word just might seem weird. I've never used that in day-to-day language. What are you going on about? Well, a quick definition from Philip Sheldrake is this: that mysticism is rooted in the call of every Christian through baptism to enter into the mystery of God and through exposure to the scriptures and to public worship. So that when we talk about God as mystery, we're not saying that God isn't knowable or is impenetrable. We're saying that God is endlessly knowable. When I think about God like that, it reminds me that we're in a relationship with God. That God's not an abstract idea or concept I can just grasp hold of and then go, all right, I've got that, I've got the God thing, I've got the discipleship thing, I've got the church thing, I know what that's about, done. That's done for the rest of my life. I can just keep hold of that. It's more like a relationship because it's a person that we know, not an idea. It's like my relationship with my wife Hannah. I think about when we first met and what I knew about her and all the things I was learning and thinking, this is amazing. I'm getting to know this new person. And now we've been together for a number of years and there's so much that we know about each other and our relationship is so much deeper. But it doesn't mean that we don't keep learning new things about each other. It doesn't mean that there isn't deeper waters to walk into. And I think it's the same with God, that we can have, I think, this idea that we get to a certain point on our Christian journey with God, we wade into the waters to a certain depth, and then that's comfortable for us, and we'll just sit there, and we'll become very happy just wading in at sort of waist height. Some people, the ones that are really like intense, probably a bit on the edge, they'll go a bit deeper. They might go up to shoulder height, and then you get the kind of the crazy ones who just go all in, and they're swimming in the ocean and the waves and everything, and they're lost in it. And they're the people who live the Christian life, just fully everything thrown in, making radical decisions that to those of us who are walking around at waist and shoulder height are thinking, what are they doing? They're amazing, but well, they're not. I can't be like that. The idea of mysticism for me is helpful because it reminds us that we can always know God better. We can always go deeper into our relationship with God. And remember, it's not just a knowing in the terms of ideas, but it's a knowing in terms of relationship, in terms of a person. But there is a risk in talking about God in this way. And the risk, I think, is in this, that when we talk about knowing God, when we talk about relationship with God, the things that pop into my head are normally things like prayer, sitting on my own or with a group praying, or going to a worship service, or singing to God, or contemplation, being on my own in solitude, or spiritual disciplines. All of these sort of very, usually individual activities, but sometimes are corporate. And I think the risk of that being our understanding of what it means to go deeper with God is that we exclude practical action. Because the Christian life in the Bible is absolutely intertwined completely with a transformed life, a transformed way of living. That there's no people in the Bible who just go deep with God and they don't live differently, they don't do stuff differently, and they don't act and make radical decisions. That they all live differently as a result of their relationship with God. When I think about Peter or Paul, some of the people who knew Jesus deeply and intimately, you read their writing and you see that these were people of deep prayer. They were people who eagerly searched the scriptures, who wanted to know and understand. These people lived their lives with complete abandonment. I read in Acts recently that Paul was kicked out of a city and he was stoned, and they left him there for dead, thinking he died when he hadn't, and he must have woke up later and taken himself off. But it doesn't stop him. Paul doesn't go, yeah, that's enough, I'm going to head home now because this is all getting a bit much. It's his relationship with God that fuels everything he does. It takes him across the world. It leads him to meet people and form new relationships and friendships that he never would have met before. It leads him into danger that he could easily have avoided. But that's not the point. The point is he's obedient to his relationship with God. He wants to follow God wherever he is called. And so mysticism and deep knowing of God, wading into the deeper waters, can't be separated from practical transformed living. It can't be separated from us challenging the evil and the structural sin that's in our world today in many ways, especially now as coronavirus seems to have highlighted some of these structural inequalities in our society, that now is the time for us to think, how can we be challenging actively some of these evils in the world? Because that is part of our calling, because this is part of what God is deeply concerned about in our world, and he wants to see it transformed, and he's doing it through his church. He's doing it through us. I want to finish by reading a quote from a theologian that I have come to very much appreciate, and his name is Jürgen Moltmann. And he writes this, that as long as we do not think that dying with Christ spiritually is a substitute for dying with him in reality, mysticism does not mean estrangement from action, but it is a preparation for public political discipleship. That our discipleship is not a life of the interior only, but it's a life of the transformed person, completely interior, exterior, in our personal relationship with God, in our transformed action as we seek to embody and bring about God's kingdom in the world today. What do you think to that?